What is up, fans? The Kindergarten Rocks channel here. Today's story time. We have a special song for you at the end about buckling up because it is against the law. But we will tell you all about that at the end. But anyways, today's book is called Frindle by Andrew Clements. Chapter 10: Freedom of the Press. Judy Morgan was a reporter for the Westfield Gazette. The local newspaper, Westfield was a quite little town. There was a notional baldry. The teenagers got rowdy once in a while, and there was some shouting at the town council and the planning board now and then, but mostly things were calm and orderly in Westfield, and every Thursday the Westfield Gazette proved it. Ted Bell sold advertisements for the paper, and he had a daughter in 4th grade at Lincoln Elementary. He told Judy that a bunch of 5th graders were making trouble and were not obeying teachers anymore. That there was something about a secret code where they were all using. And half the students have been kept after school one day last week, including his own little girl. The only other story Judy was working on was about 18 new trees that were going to be planted along East Main Street. The trees could wait. This thing at the elementary school sounded like a real story. So Judy Morgan showed up at Lincoln Elementary School at 3 o'clock that day after Mrs. Chatham had been to visit Nick's parents. The sign on the door said, "All visitors must report to the office," and she did. On the bulletin board outside the office, Judy saw Mrs. Granger's notice about the punishment for using the word Frindle. She stepped back 2 passes, aimed her camera at the notice, and snapped a photo. She read the notice once more and then stepped into the office. Miss Feet, the school secretary, looked up and smiled. "May I help you?" "Yes, I'm sure you can. My name is Judy Morgan, and I work for the Westfield Gazette. I want to know about this poster outside of the office. The one about the word Frindle. Who should I talk to?" Miss Freed stopped smiling. She was sick and tired of anything to do with the word. For the past week, her phone had been ringing off the hook. It wasn't a parent complaining about a child who had to stay after school. It was someone from the school board trying to get in touch with Mrs. Chatham and Mrs. Granger, Mrs. Feed. Mrs. Feed pursed her lips and narrowed his eyes. She said, "You'll have to speak with the principal. Let me see if Mrs. Chatham is free." She was. This isn't a principal alive who can find the time to talk to someone from the local newspaper. The reporter was invited into Mrs. Chatham's office. Judy noticed right away that the principal was not comfortable talking about this stuff. When asked about the poster outside the office door, Mrs. Chatham laughed and said, "Oh, it's nothing really. Some kids have been playing a prank, and it was time to put a stop to it." The principal laughed, sounded phony, and Judy Morgan and did that notice put an end to the prank. "I heard then that a lot of children were kept after school last week. Would you tell me a little about it? Parents would like to know what's going on." Mrs. Chatham looked like a kid who had been sent to the principal's office. She squirmed a little in her chair and tried to smile. She said, "Well, we do still have a little problem, but it's under control. Mrs. Granger may have overreacted a bit. I don't think the children have really been trying to be disrespectful. They're just having some fun, and it's more like a difference of opinion, and And then Mrs. Chatham went to tell the reporter that she knew about the word Frindle and how it had become popular among students. Among the students, Judy Morgan took careful notes. And when the principal had finished, Judy said, "Would you mind if I ask Mrs. Granger a few questions?" Mrs. Chatham said, "No, not at all." But Judy could tell that the principal wished she would just go away. What could she say through? Mrs. Chatham couldn't very well keep the reporter away from Mrs. Granger because, after all, America is a free country with free press. If Judy really wanted to, she would talk to Mrs. Granger sooner or later. It was sooner. In 3 minutes, Judy Morgan was standing in the doorway of room 12, looking at Mrs. Granger. There was about 15 children sitting at desks scattered around the room, busy writing out their 100 sentences. She knocked in. The teacher, students looked up from their work. I'm Judy Morgan from the Westfield Gazette. Miss Granger, may I have a word with you? Miss Granger stood and came out into the hallway and closed the door. Judy could see past her and saw that every kid in the room was straining to listen. Judy noticed Mrs. Granger's eyes right away, gray, maybe flicked with a little gold and very sharp, but not hard or mean, just bright and strong. The reporter didn't waste words. "So I hear that you plan to stop the students from using their new word. How goes the battle?" Mrs. Granger did not smile, and her eyes got even brighter. "First of all, it's not a battle. I am merely helping my students to see that this foolishness should stop. Such a waste of time and thought. This is no reason to invent a new and unless word. They should each learn to use the words that we already have. But of course, all this is just a silly fad and when you add an E to fad, you get fade. And I predict that the fad will fade." Judy looked up from her notes pad and asked, "Any ideas how it all got started?" Miss Granger's eyes seemed to always catch on fire in that question, and she said, "Yes, I have a very good idea how it all got started. It was a young man's idea, a 5th grade student named Nicholas Allen. And now you will have to excuse me, Mrs. Morgan, for I have papers I must grade." And with a brief, firm handshake, Mrs. Granger ended the interview. The reporter didn't leave right away. She walked back through the hallway and sat on a bench outside the office so she could look over her notes to make sure they made sense. It took about 5 minutes. Then Judy stood up, put her notebook into his large black purse, waved goodbye to a frowning Miss V, and headed out the door. As she walked to the parking lot, 5 or 6 kids who had just finished writing their sentences for Mrs. Granger came out another door. Judy walked beside them, listening to them laugh and joke. Then she asked them, "Why do you kids keep saying Frindle? Don't you hate staying after school?" A joy was almost falling over from the weight of his backpack, looked up at her and smiled. "It's not so bad. There's always a bunch of my friends there. I've read this sentence 600 times now." And then the kids said, Miss Granger didn't even look at their punishment papers anymore. They were sure because where you were supposed to write, "I'm writing this punishment punishment with a pen. Everyone was writing the word Frindle every fourth or fifth sentence, and Mrs. Granger hadn't said anything. One girl bragged that she'd written the word Frindle 45 times on her sheet today. She grinned and said, That's new record. And this boy named Nick, Judy asked, has he had to stay after school too? The kids giggled, and a tall boy with reddish-brown hair and glasses said, Mrs. Granger has kept Nick after school so much that everyone thinks she wants to adopt him. The reporter smiled and said, Do you think I could find Nick and talk to him about this afternoon? To him this afternoon? The boy looked at Judy for a second and said, I don't think Nick would want to talk to you right away. He might say something stupid and get himself in trouble. Then he grinned at his friends as the kids laughed and poked and punched each other and headed off down to the block. Judy drove back to her office and started writing. The next morning, a brown envelope arrived at the Gazette's office addressing to Judy Morgan, and below her name was written Frindle Story. When Judy opened it, there was a class picture about the 5th grade at Lincoln Elementary School. Mrs. Granger and the six other teachers were standing at the end of the rows, and the kids were dressed neatly, hair all combed, but there was something odd about the picture. The reporter looked closely and saw that each kid was holding up a pen, and each little mouth was perked in the same way. She was puzzled for a second, but then she said softly, Of course, they're all saying Frindle. Written on the back of the picture in neat cursive was 3 rows, 5 from left. Judy looked at the picture, and there she saw that same green red-haired boy with glasses that she had talked to in the school. She had talked to in the school parking lot yesterday. She chuckled and said, Well. Pleased to meet you, Mr. Nicholas Allen. The end. So there's a new law from the Alabama. This law has been around here for I don't know how many years, but there is a law from the Alabama Department of Transportation that says, buckle up, it's against the law. A message from the Alabama Department of Transportation. So, y'all, I want y'all to listen to this song for just a minute. Anyways, I hope y'all enjoyed today's story time. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.
The pay is awesome.
Hold up. We gotta add. We'll be right back. Well, anyways, thank you for joining us for today's story time. Have a good day. We'll see you tomorrow. We'll see you next time. Sorry.
Buckle up, buckle up. The first thing you do is buckle up. Buckle up, buckle up. The first thing you do is buckle up. You ride in a school bus, you ride in a car. If your travels are short or your travels are far, don't take no chances, don't test your luck.